Hello, and welcome to our session on managing remotely. My name is Larry Kravitz, and I am the Senior Organizational Development Manager at Henry Schein. The materials we are providing to you, our important customers, have been adapted from a workshop the organizational development team has built and delivered for our Team Schein members. We hope that you find this information useful at this time. Almost overnight, remote work has become mainstream. Companies around the world are encouraging their employees to work from home to prioritize the health and safety of their workforce and communities amid coronavirus. Working through this rapid change can be hard, and Henry Schein is moving quickly to help employees and our customers get the information they can trust, stay connected to their community, and learn how to be more productive and successful in their roles. During this session, we will cover expanding your knowledge of the dynamics of remote work. We will identify critical skills necessary for leading a virtual team. We will review guiding principles and best practices and discuss additional situations involving virtual teams. As organizations and managers plan to make provisions for remote work, they also need to consider managing their remote workers' experience. To effectively manage these experiences, organizations and managers need to understand common challenges faced by remote employees and work toward overcoming them. Before moving on, take a moment to consider what the benefits are of managing a remote workforce. You've probably thought of some great benefits. While remote work for organizations is part of normal business, or born out of necessity, it could prove to be more than just that. 80% of workers would be more loyal to their employers if they had flexible work options, something that remote work provides. A Stanford University study found that the increase in productivity of remote workers is equal to an extra day per person per week. The study also found that resignations tend to drop by 50% when employees are allowed to work from home. These statistics indicate that remote work provisions have a positive impact on employees' engagement and productivity. Therefore, leaders should try to keep an open mind about remote work and to the unique management needs of remote workers. You can start off by understanding and developing the skills necessary to manage a virtual team. With remote work, there are advantages as well as challenges. Take a moment to consider the challenges that you can think of that come with managing a remote workforce. Both managers and their employees often express concerns about the lack of face-to-face interaction. Supervisors worry that employees will not work as hard or as efficiently, even though research indicates otherwise, at least for some types of jobs. Many employees, on the other hand, struggle with reduced access to managerial support and communication. In some cases, employees feel that remote managers are out of touch with their needs and thereby are neither supportive nor helpful in getting their work done. In general, but more so with new remote workers, they are often surprised by the added time and effort needed to locate information from coworkers. Even getting answers to what seem like the simple questions can feel like a large obstacle to a worker based at home. Loneliness is one of the most common complaints about remote work, with employees missing the informal social interaction of an office setting. It is thought that extroverts may suffer from isolation more in the short run, particularly if they do not have opportunities to connect with others in their remote work environment. However, over a longer period of time, isolation can cause employees to feel less belonging to their organization and can even result in increased intention to leave the company. Typically, employers and managers are encouraged to ensure that their remote workers have both dedicated workspace and adequate childcare before allowing them to work remotely. Yet, in the case of a sudden transition to virtual work, there is a much greater chance that employees will be dealing with suboptimal workspaces and, in the case of school and daycare closures, unexpected parenting responsibilities. Even in normal circumstances, family and home demands can have an impact on remote work. Managers should expect these distractions to be greater during this unplanned work-from-home transition. Regardless of the nature of a team, leaders must possess a standard traditional set of skills to achieve team objectives. However, in global virtual team environments, managers need to have additional leadership skills to be as successful as managers with co-located teams. Let's take a look at the additional skills required for managing virtual teams. In the first list, you have traditional leadership skills that apply across all teams. Next, you have additional skills for leading a virtual team. Notice that we've added building trust and collaboration in the team, and precision in communication, as well as technological know-how and aptitude. Finally, the skills needed for managing a global virtual team add cultural intelligence and logistical skills. Trust is at the core of an effective and cohesive team. Without it, teamwork is practically impossible. The natural interactions and communication that occur amongst a co-located team is not so frequent with remote team members. These could include things such as informal chats, working lunches, or displays of nonverbal cues. These all help with establishing rapport, building relationships, and increasing trust. Therefore, managers have to be intentional with their actions to build trust with remote team members. Keeping with the concept of being intentional, communicating and engaging with remote team members on a regular basis will aid in fostering inclusivity, ensuring that your team members don't feel as if they're out of sight, out of mind. When determining methods and practices for collaboration amongst your team, get creative and think differently about how you can come together to be productive and accomplish goals. Finally, make sure that you and your team don't let work take over life or life take over work. As a leader, set the example and emphasize the importance of finding balance, mental well-being, and self-care. Schedule time accordingly and integrate your work-from-home routine with your personal life in a productive way. We mentioned before that trust is vital. Take a moment to consider how you can build trust with remote employees. A primary goal of a remote manager is to build trust between themselves and their team members. A first step in doing so is to provide consistency and structure. Managers should endeavor to have a consistent approach in all things and provide structure as needed. As an example, this could be making sure that there are well-documented procedures in place and that they are consistently being followed. It is important for a team to understand the basis for performance, and clearly defining those requirements will help with this. Develop working agreements and define norms. Work with your team to develop procedures and identify expectations. Allow for their input since they are the ones getting the job done. Involving the team in setting up the process means everyone is invested in it and its success. Also, creating a team working agreement is very valuable. How do team members want to communicate? When will people be available? What are the mutually agreeable turnaround times? Who's available to help with what tasks? Make this a collaborative effort, and that will likely produce buy-in from the team. It's also a good tool to use when onboarding new team members, as it will give them a good understanding of how the team operates, allowing them to integrate much quicker. While this is a good idea for any team member, it's especially important for remote teams to have a solidly defined set of norms. It will smooth team interactions, build trust amongst team members, and help with accountability. These are all important factors to overall team health and successes. When it's all said and done, it's the manager's job to guide the team. With this and their responsibility to make sure everything that the team will need is in place. You must foster equality and transparency. Making sure that there is equality between the workers on the team is really important. If some people are getting special considerations or are not being held to the same levels of accountability, it's going to get eventually noticed. An obvious way to help with this is to not play favorites. Another useful approach is to be cognizant to share information openly amongst the entire team unless it needs to be kept confidential. Sharing information equally helps build the team identity. It also helps to avoid confusion and prevent team members from feeling disconnected. This is not to say that you can't have private conversations with individuals when appropriate. Make sure you are rewarding and recognizing individuals. When a team member excels at something, the entire team benefits. However, it is important to recognize individual accomplishments and to be mindful of how you do so. Make sure that when sharing an individual's success with the team, you are consistent in your approach, especially if there is a reward involved. You can ask the employee how they prefer to be recognized to avoid praising someone publicly who is more private in nature. Remember to treat people fairly and equally. If you treat people differently, it can damage the way they view you and can hurt the way they view the team as well. Finally, distribute authority. Another way to build trust and a sense of common purpose on a team is to allow team members who are experts to lead in their area of expertise. This won't work for all teams and all circumstances, but you can offer an employee the opportunity to be the lead on a project. They may or may not want to take the lead, and that is their choice. The important thing here is that everyone is given the opportunity if it occurs. This helps to demonstrate trust of the employee's capabilities, and it demonstrates that anyone who wants the chance to shine will get it. It also allows the manager to delegate tasks so that they can focus on other priorities. I think we can all agree that setting clear goals and expectations is a top priority and responsibility for a manager. Despite its importance, are we always clear about our expectations? Do we always communicate them clearly? Is it possible we have implicit expectations of our team members? Take a moment to think about some implicit expectations you have of your team members. For example, maybe your remote employee will work 8 straight hours as opposed to 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the late evening. How can you make those implicit expectations explicit? Clarity is crucial to avoid mistakes, misunderstandings, and wasted efforts. Be explicit when communicating priorities and responsibilities. Communicate with the entire team so everyone understands what they are individually responsible for, as well as what their teammates are working on. This can be done during team meetings. When discussing goals and assignments, consider who the stakeholders are. Is there an overlap amongst team members' work? And if so, get clear on what the deliverables are for each person. Establish timeframes and deadlines. It may also help to provide examples to illustrate what good quality work output looks like. Determine how to track progress and completion of assignments. Work together to determine the best method to use to make sure your activities are transparent and updates are provided at a set cadence. This could be weekly team meetings, monthly reports, etc. Encourage your team members to reach out as needed to make sure they are aligned and on track. Setting specific work hours for availability enables the team to reach out to each other during these hours and prevents remote workers from being always on and running the risk of burning out. Also, be clear on how you plan to communicate while you work together. Different workers have different working styles, so find out what works best. Keeping the lines of communication open for your team members is essential. When it comes to remote workers, you will not have the opportunities for impromptu conversations in the hall or at the coffee station, and therefore you want to have regular and frequent meetings with individual team members and the team as a whole. Schedule one-on-ones and team meetings in regular intervals, and do your best to avoid canceling them at all costs. These meetings give the group an opportunity to not only follow up on work and provide updates, but also to build relationships. Additionally, encourage the team to get together on their own as well. Keep in mind that remote workers spend a lot of time working alone, and they will appreciate having friendly conversations and building rapport with different team members. Remote workers usually do not have access to the typical channels such as peer-to-peer networks or human resources to talk about any issues or problems they face. Managers should provide updates and feedback to keep team members informed. They should also solicit feedback from remote workers about the problems or challenges they face while working remotely, and act upon that feedback if possible, even if it requires changing a few systems and processes to better suit them. Make sure to utilize the appropriate channels for communication to provide the best experience for all. Understanding the appropriate tools to use when communicating certain messages or for certain situations is key. Let's review some of those tools now. There are literally hundreds of virtual tools that you can utilize. We have grouped them into 5 vehicles of communication. Phone calls are quick and easy to use for dialogue. Use a phone call only when dialogue is necessary and when the response is urgent. Of course, you can't use a phone call for video or to share materials. Email works well to share comprehensive information. In an email, you can use a bold font to show importance, and it is easy to send an email to many. Since we get so many emails, it may not be useful to use the email if the matter is urgent. It may get lost in the volume of emails. Instant message tools such as Skype or MS Teams are great for quick and easy dialogue. In addition, it's a great tool to share your screen with one or more employees. For a large group interaction, we recommend something such as a video conference. Video conference tools such as WebEx, BlueJeans, Skype, or Zoom can help you to create connectedness and engagement. These are useful when you need to see someone face-to-face, as you can enable a camera. Finally, if you have documents to share or an extremely large audience, we recommend using a collaboration platform such as a shared drive, MS Teams, OneDrive, or something similar. These tools will allow you to share real-time updates to materials and back up your work. Some of these tools are not useful if you need a video conferencing option. When it comes to managing performance, the same practices for co-located teams should be applied for remote employees. Be proactive and set priorities early on. If there are changes in priorities, communicate them early to avoid wasted efforts and to enable employees to plan and adjust accordingly. Monitor performance throughout the year and provide feedback in a timely manner. Employees should not be hearing about performance issues long after the occurrence or during their annual review. Feedback is critical for maintaining team cohesion and identity in a virtual environment. Being proactive in monitoring team performance allows managers to provide feedback in real time, simultaneously keeping the team on track while also encouraging team members. When we think about culture, there are so many things that come to mind: ethnicity, geographies, gender, race, religion. One way to describe it, simply, is the total way of life of a group of people united by common attributes. As a manager, you will very likely have a diverse group of team members. While there will be various differences and similarities between them, it is important to make sure everyone is treated fairly, respectfully, and included. To build an inclusive culture, there are several things you can do. Develop your cultural intelligence. Be open and interested in learning about other cultures. Observe and ask questions respectfully to broaden your understanding. If you have remote employees located in other regions or countries, learn more about holidays and customs that are observed in that area. Take this into consideration when interacting with the team. Additionally, when scheduling meetings, be mindful of time zones and consider different times in order to be fair as to who might have to take an early or late call. Include remote employees in the development of new processes and programs. Reflect on your own culture and how it influences your perspective and behaviors. Identify any biases you may have and how they affect your interaction with others. Don't forget, the same way your cultural influences your perspective the same applies to others. One trap we may fall into is the use of idioms, especially those that only make sense in America. Ballpark figure, behind the eight ball, Monday morning quarterback, etc. Your objective should be to work towards trying to understand, relate to, and respect other cultures. Not only will this help you be a more effective manager with your team, it will help you be successful in a diverse environment. Given that remote workers are not physically present in your local offices, you will need to have to be mindful of ways you can ensure that they are being included and considered equally. Remote workers are not part of everyday conversations that happen in every office. Make sure your local office is transparent to remote team members, ensuring that they are up to date on the latest happenings in the office, both on a professional and personal front. Cascading corporate communications is a way to keep remote employees informed on things other than directly related to the team. Use technology to create dedicated spaces for celebrating special days, such as birthdays, company milestones, and as well as company recognition. Being intentional about creating community helps develop a corporate culture that inspires connection, which can result in an increased remote worker engagement. Including remote workers in team celebrations or creating platforms for them to engage in company-wide initiatives, such as committees or task force, can all further enrich their remote experience. When opportunities open up for a new or next roles or expanded responsibilities, make sure that you are including remote workers on your list of eligible candidates. Even if it might require more office time for that employee, give them the chance to consider making that change if their performance merits the opportunity. Remember to be inclusive and treat all employees with fairness and respect. Human beings are driven by purpose. We want to understand what our value is, how do we impact others, and why we do the work we do. As a manager or leader, you are setting the priorities and providing direction as to what the team should be accomplishing. Therefore, you are in the position to instill a sense of purpose amongst the group. One way to do this is to make it personal. Share with your employees how their individual work and efforts directly impacts customers, team members, and others. Make the connection and be authentic about it. You need to believe what you are saying and walk your talk. Your behaviors should be communicating the same message. If not, your team might view your tactics as manipulative. And remind them regularly, this shouldn't be about a one-time speech or event. Consistently reminding them of their impact will go beyond planting a seed. Encourage your team members to come up with new ideas and empower them to run with those ideas if possible. During times like these, there are opportunities to learn from the sudden changes and improve processes or enhance them. Focus on what you can control and directly influence. This is extremely important during times of change and uncertainty. We all have things we worry about, and rightfully so. And while we want to acknowledge our concerns, we can redirect our efforts towards activities that we can directly influence and therefore be more effective. It may sound cliche, but being optimistic is a good rule of thumb overall, and in many ways can be contagious. Remember, your team is getting their cues from you as the leader and will be directly influenced by your perspective on things. Having a positive and optimistic outlook will affect the actions you take and therefore the results that you get. As sudden changes sometimes occur, it's important to keep some things in mind. Emotions could quickly escalate during these times of what could be high stress. The first step is to acknowledge and work through your feelings about the situation. Focus on what you can control so you will be in a better position to lead your team through the change. Next, acknowledge the feelings your employees might be experiencing. Encourage them to talk to you, their colleagues, their friends, or other resources. Most importantly, acknowledge the emotions and do not ignore them. Try to provide employees with all the information that you can. While some information can't be shared, The more you share, the more trust you will earn. And if you don't know something, tell them that you don't know. During change, it's okay not to have all the answers. The key here is to do your best to keep your team engaged, encouraged, and trusting in your leadership during this time. Give employees time to get used to working from home. This shouldn't take 2 weeks, but it could take a few days. Let them know that you understand what they are going through, even if it's just the emotions you can relate to, such as feeling nervous, frustrated, hopeful, or anxious. Lastly, show appreciation for their contributions. Be specific so your employees know why you appreciate them and the work that they do. I'd like to share with you some additional considerations to keep in mind. It's obvious that in order for an employee to work remotely, they will need basic supplies and equipment, a computer, phone, and internet connection. However, there are additional things to consider beyond the basic equipment. Thought needs to be put into all the necessary things a remote employee will need to be productive and effective. Determine what's critical and develop a process for supplying, maintaining, and verify that your employees have all the tools that they need. Ensuring your remote employee has all the tools that they need to be successful in their role is a great start to building their confidence and trust in you as their manager, which will lead us to the next section of guiding principles for managing a virtual team. With remote work comes greater autonomy and trust in your employee to handle the nuances of working virtually. For some managers, they may feel compelled to monitor their employees' activities more stringently because they can't see what they are doing. Don't do it. Managers should try to avoid micromanaging their employees by providing a manageable workload and flexibility, thus empowering them to be productive in a non-traditional work environment. Use your regular check-ins to see if they need any support to complete their work. This will enable you to surface potential areas of concern before they become problems without the privacy concerns that surround utilizing employee monitoring software. And finally, focus on the output of the employee's work versus other details, such as the number of hours an employee has logged or the time it has taken to respond over email. One of the primary goals of an onboarding process is to help new hires acclimate to their new work environment. This includes getting to know you and your team and understanding their new role and expectations. It also includes understanding the organization, the culture, and ways to access information that will help them be effective and successful. These things can be seen easier in person with a new hire that is located in your same location, but we should try to create the same experiences as best as we can for remote employees. Provide the opportunity for virtual face-to-face connections. Arrange the virtual meet and greets with the team. Video conferencing allows new hires to have access to both the verbal and the nonverbal communication that aids with greater connection and rapport building. Set expectations as usual and communicate frequently. Remote employees may need more frequent check-ins, especially in their first few weeks. Be clear about expectations, goals, and performance, as well as workload balance. Make them feel welcome, be mindful to use technology to foster collaboration with the team, and be sure to have personal as well as work-related conversations. You may also want to assign the new employee a buddy so that their sole connection is not you, the manager. Again, this will help with building relationships and increase cohesiveness amongst the team. Conflict arises for both in-person teams as well as remote teams. When handled well, conflict can be good, resulting in new ideas and solutions and stronger relationships. When conflict is mishandled, there can be negative consequences that can ultimately impact the entire team. As the manager, it's your role to recognize conflict and help employees get through it. Amongst remote teams, communication will frequently occur via email or chat messages. Sometimes messages can be misinterpreted, but you can watch for subtle cues, such as employees using all caps or the use of sarcasm. It is important that you have a conversation with the employee if you see these things happening. If you do need to have a conversation, think about the way you want to have that conversation. It's probably not appropriate to do it over email, and instead use a phone call or video chat. Ask questions of the employee or employees in order to understand their perspectives and to avoid making assumptions. Say something like, "Tell me how you came to think that so that I understand," or "What are your feelings regarding this situation?" Finally, utilize conflict resolution skills to get clear on the situation, collaborate, and work towards a solution. On behalf of the organizational development team and Henry Schein, we thank you for being our customer. While we are living in uncertain times, working together, we will get through this. Best wishes to you, your employees, and your family members.